Hello, welcome to Sketch Club this beautiful Thursday night. I'll be flying solo tonight. My two lovely assistants are out and about. So before Sketch Club starts tonight at 7, I guess I should introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jason Meyer. I'm the host. I'm usually joined by Izzy and Cindy. They've got the night off. They got some other things they're doing. But tonight, before we get started, I'd like to just show you a little introduction into what I'll be doing tonight and a little bit about Sketch Club. So let's jump over to the iPad and take just a couple of minutes and look at what we'll be doing tonight. So on my drawing, you're going to see basically this section right here. This is background. So mainly I have what I'm going to call background. Hey, Susan, welcome. I got some light hitting the flowers right here. And then this is dark. And I'm going to end up grouping that more or less with these petals on this side that are dark. So that will be shadow. I'll put a little bit of light here on this side. And then there's background again. So I'm thinking in terms of the light value, the background value, and the dark value. So light, gray, and dark. So the first thing is I try not to look at the details. I want to see the big structure first. And can you imagine these as cups with the dark bottom being the base of the cup? Hey, Claudia. Hi, Shakti. All right, and then if we shadow those, it would look something like that. So more than exactly what I'm looking at, I'll be drawing the pattern of the background, the light, the dark. There'll be a little light on the tips, and then the background again. So it might end up looking something like this. So I'm going to start on a drawing that we started on Tuesday, the sunflower drawing. And what I'm going to do now is those notes, that background note, that light note, that dark note, the light note, and the background note. I'm going to work on the measure or the space between those, how light and dark they are, and also the transitions along with the shapes. So I'm going to clean these notes up tonight. Notice that I'm not really adding anything. I'm literally just taking these few notes and I'm making them very clear and interesting. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Again, this is how I'm doing it. There is no right, there is no wrong way. Grab something to write with, something to mark with, something to mark on, and have some fun, just like you're going to take a walk. Not for a result, just for the experience. All right, so is everybody ready to draw, I hope? Hello, Cindy. Cindy's checking in from afar. It's good to see everybody here tonight. Fun, fun. All right, one more minute before we get going, and then spend about 20 minutes sketching. Like I said, I've worked, we did 10 minutes Tuesday. And then so I took that 10-minute drawing, and then tonight I'm going to add another 20 on top of it. For those of you in the class, notice how I'm developing or refining the drawing. Again, it's not about adding, but it's about refining what I have and the relationship of the pieces that are there. Okay. All right. So it says it's about that time on my clock Do you guys have all your gear set up, ready to go? By the way, I did change settings on our Facebook page. So I know a lot of you tried to post on Tuesday and it would not let you. That should be fixed now. So if you so desire, we'd love to see the sketches you come up with tonight. So go ahead and post those in the comments. And without further ado, let's get started. So I'll be concentrating on that main flower. And notice there's background, then there's light, petals and shadow, the dark center, light petals, and then background. So I'm going to think of each of those things as a note, as if we were playing music. And I'm going to see how beautiful I can make the combinations of those notes. Okay, the first thing I'm going to start with is kind of evening out that background to make it more of an even tone than a bunch of random marks. Right? And the same down here. Again, give yourself a chance to warm up. If you haven't been drawing all day, if you're just sitting down, don't go into the most important, critical thing. Give yourself to get warmed up. Give yourself a chance. It turns out what I started with, some of that adjusting these notes is actually what takes a long time. Right? So be patient. Don't be in a hurry. And, it's not a contest. Well, who can do it in one step? No, go over that dark again. Blend in that background again. Right? Where's that highlight the brightest? Can you make that a little bit brighter? Measure matters. The measure matters. Hey, Lori's here. Good evening, Lori. So tonight I'm going to spend 20 minutes on the sunflower that I started on Tuesday. So it was a 10-minute start. And I was just telling everybody how I'm not really adding that much. I'm just refining the notes that I have there, their relationship to one another, and their transition from one to the other. Always keeping in mind where I want the viewer to look, right? That overall design. Most people tend to see the little details before they see the big pieces. We're trying to see the big pieces before we see any details. Hello, Miss Karen. How are you? So tonight I'm going to build on the sunflower for 20 minutes. Probably sound like a robot here. I think I've said that 4 or 5 times. So we're just about 3 minutes in. So if you're just joining us, you're just catching the front end of this, you're in good shape. And I was saying what this is about, it's really not even about petals or the overall sunflower, but it's about the rhythm of those value changes, of the dark to the light, to the dark, to the light, to the... How big's that light? What shape is it? How big's the dark? What shape is that? How does that light transition into that dark? Sometimes it happens so slowly, it's hard to appreciate. But I have a big note to myself to remind me to rewind tonight. But at the end, when we rewind and come back, I think you'll see, again, my intention's always the clarity of the notes to the degree that I want them clear, right? Sometimes clarity of the note means that it's vague or mysterious or even indistinctly merges with the next value. Right? If we're conducting a symphony, we can think of All these things as our instruments. The edges, hard or soft, lost and found. The clarity, right? The layperson thinks that the artist is the one who makes everything super clear. No. The best art is the one that has the best balance between what's left out and what is included. Right? It's always a balance, a harmony. And a harmony not as something static, but a harmony as in a living balance. You know, every mark affects the whole. So make each mark for the whole, and you won't get lost. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm accentuating some dark around that light, which is making that light appear brighter, right? Just because it's a stronger, harder, sharper contrast there. Hard edges makes things appear cleaner, brighter, stronger. Lost edges obviously make things feel a little weaker. So the way I draw and sketch and paint and think about this is really not in terms of objects, but in terms of light, dark patterns. And I think of those patterns, the light shape and the dark shape and the gray shape, in terms of more or less. You'll notice that the petals on the side of the flower that I'm working now, right, they're going to be bigger and stronger and a flatter shape than the petals on that opposite side where I just started working. You see how we're just catching the edge of that. So that white, quote unquote, shape isn't the same on this side as it is on the other side. But it's radically different. Yet, boom, they're harmonized together. Right? We tend to be fence builders, meaning we tend to want to make marks and everything exactly equal. If we've got this much on this side, let's make the equal amount on that side. And if everything's equal, it's not interesting. Right? So what we have to do in a harmonious way is make things unequal and interesting and impose a larger logic on it. A design, a composition. You know, but those words can be intimidating. I prefer to use the term eye path, E-Y-E, and like a path, like you're walking down a trail. Right? How are we going to lead our viewers, our audience, our collectors through this piece? Right? And we don't have sunflower, we don't have air, we don't have sun, we don't have shadow. Right? We got a piece of charcoal. The only thing I can do with that piece of charcoal is make a dark mark. Now I can make that mark darker or a little lighter. I can make that mark have a hard edge or a soft edge. So I best be thinking in those terms when I'm using this tool, because that's all that tool knows how to do. And that tool's doing the entire job. So make sure you've got good communication with what you're using and you understand what it can and cannot do. That'll give you stronger images. All right, how you guys doing? Are you working on that relationship between the value of the background and the value of the dark and the shadow? The edge of that light, that shape. Look at that crazy shape that's there. But that's more interesting than actually what's in the photo, isn't it? It's a lot more interesting. Right? Our job's not to copy, but to create. Create what? Well, create a beautiful image. Right? And images are visual. We see them with our eyes. And so what are we actually seeing on our canvas? We're seeing dark shapes. We see light shapes. We see gray shapes. We and the viewer. In their mind, they'll put that together as a sunflower or a couple of sunflowers or this or that. But charcoal can't do sunflower. Charcoal doesn't know what to do when you say sunflower. Charcoal only knows what to do when you say dark, darker, not so dark, hard edge, more pressure, less pressure. It may sound abstract, but it's very, very, very concrete. I'm thinking in terms of what can I actually do with the tools I have, right? And I always want to think is what's the most I can do. Now for Sketch Club, this is more experimentation and trying. Like those of you in class know, I always say, I want you to do your very, very best. Always do your best. But this is a stupid piece of paper. Don't get too caught up on it. Okay? So you can hold both of those thoughts in your head at once. Try to do the best drawing you've ever done, but it's really just a little piece of paper. Don't get too uptight about it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Try again next time. But just the experience of making the mark on the paper. Right? And that quest to figure out what differentiates a group of beautiful marks versus not so beautiful marks. All right, anybody new out there? I hope I'm not scaring you off with my abstract talk. But I found for me, at least, art and painting and drawing is, it's not how most people think. It's not what about most people think. Got to make a large mental jump. We spent our entire lives using our eyes to feel around, right? Not run into doors, to pick up the glass of water, to get the fruit from the tree or the vegetable from the ground. So we've used our eyes as tools to feel with our hands, or so that we don't run through with our body, that we walk through the opening rather than to the door. But that's not actually what we're seeing. We're actually picking up light, dark patterns. And oftentimes those patterns will transcend the objects. In other words, the dark might not just be on the sunflower or on the petals. It may be the center of the sunflower and some of the shadow on the petals and a touch. So that's why I don't draw the sunflower or look for the sunflower shape. I look for the shadow shape. I look for the light shape, and I draw those shapes. The reason being, those shapes are usually much, much more interesting. And the subject of light is much larger, much more universal than the subject of flower, of thingness. Right? So we're thinking in larger scales here, at a more primary level. And then we're suggesting sunflower. And the viewers love it because by just suggesting it, you leave room for them to participate in forming the image in their mind, right? And then they get to engage their imagination, which is a much, much more enjoyable experience than being lectured to. Right? Nobody likes to sit there and just be da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. No. Yeah, well, what do you think about it? Yeah, how would you have done it? What do you see there? Right? That leaves an opening for the viewer. So by not putting in all the details, especially in the shadow. One, it helps us focus on the light, which is how we see, by light, not by dark. And so it's comforting because it goes with the natural way we see. And it's exciting because we've engaged their imagination. Hey, Sue made it. Happy to have you, kiddo. Happy to have you. So I spent, still got 5 minutes. But can you see how those notes are so much cleaner than they were when I started? Again, I didn't really add anything, any more details. I didn't go and add a stem or leaves off of the stem. But I just worked on that background value, right? And I worked on that light value. And then getting some nice darks next to that light value so it popped, as they say. It has a lot of impact. If there's soft, mushy edges, there's not a lot of impact. And sometimes we want that where we want vagueness, but where we need impact, or we want focus, or we need the viewer to look, we say, hey, come over here. How do we do that? We put a big plate of food out. Put an ice chest full of drinks out on a hot day. Man, wherever that thing is, people are going to congregate. Right? And at the outskirts of the party, there's nothing to do. So they're going to be drawn to the middle of the party. Right? Wherever you put that food, the music, the drinks, that's where they're going to come. Okay, and you can get that emerging quality. That emerging quality which adds that feeling of life and movement and mystery. And now this is a secondary one I'm working on down here. And since it's secondary, I don't want to bring it up to the same level as my main one. So I'm going to suggest a few things and suggest the overall form. But it's going to stay a lot more vague, unfinished, undetailed, unhard-edged, unspecific, much more so than the flower above it. Okay, so again, I'm not necessarily drawing that flower, but I'm using that flower to set up a composition with this other flower. Right? A supporting role. What happens when the supporting actress, right, outshines the leading? Well, the movie's topsy-turvy. It doesn't quite work out. Right? So let's make sure that our leading roles, there's no doubt about who's leading this production. Who's the superstar? Who has the longest trailer? Okay, so the hardest part about this is that mental shift from painting things to painting patterns, shape patterns, edge patterns. But once you do, it gets a little more abstract, but so much, for me anyway, it was so much more fun. Again, there's no right way or wrong way. I'm just trying to share with you my approach and how I'm seeing this. If you think I'm crazy, well, hit mute. Hit mute, turn me off, turn on some music, and sketch away. Whatever way makes sense to you. You notice? So I'm still trying to do kind of a single light shape there. Interesting, but the edges aren't quite so hard. The shape's not quite so flat. So that white doesn't have the impact of the white from the flower above does. Right? And then I can even take my stump and blur that out, as it were. Kind of muck it up a little bit. Again, it takes the clarity out of it and makes it weaker. We don't always want to make things stronger. Sometimes we want to make them weaker. All right, Lori, thanks for joining us. See you soon. Okay, so that's as far as I got in my 20 minutes. So remember what the whole thing was about? It was about cleaning up those notes. So let's see if there was a big difference between beginning and end. So we finished there, and we started there. You see how with this beginning, those notes aren't super clear. But by the end, there's a lot more clarity. So we'll be going over this tomorrow in class as we review your work from the week for our Friday feedback. And that's going to be the theme of it is these patterns. Have you organized them overall, which is the composition? And how's the measure between each of them? And how are the transitions? Okay. So again, not sometimes, but the act of taking away is just as important and just as effective as the act of adding. So the notes are there, but not very clear. And we cleaned them up. So that's it for me tonight, guys. I'll be back Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday next week, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time for more Sketch Club. It'll be 5-minute drawing Sunday, 4 5s, Tuesdays 2 10s, and Thursdays 120. So until then, you guys take care. For those of you in class, we'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks, Susan.